If one has designated before Yontav black doves, but on Yontav found white doves, for he had designated white doves, but found black doves, or if he had designated 2 and found 3, they are prohibited. If he had designated 3 but found only 2, they are permissible. If the designated doves have been in the nest, but he found doves in front of the nest, they are prohibited. If there are none there except those, then these are permitted to be slaughtered. Beis Shammai says we may not remove the shutters on Yom Tov, but Beis Hillel permits even their replacement. Beis Shammai says we may not take the pestle to chop meat upon it, but Beis Hillel permits it. And Beis Shammai says we may not put the hide of a freshly slaughtered animal where it will be trampled, nor may we pick it up unless the meat, the vayamel and chazayas is on it, but Beit Hillel permits it. Beis Shammai says we may not carry out neither a small child, nor a lulav, nor a Torah scroll to the public domain, but Beis Hillel permits it. And Beis Shammai says we may not deliver challah or the Kohen's gifts to a Kohen on Yom Tov, whether they were separated yesterday or they were separated today, but Beis Hillel permits. Beis Shammai said to them, there is an analogy. Challah and gifts are grants to the Kohen, and Truma is a grant to the Kohen. Just as we may not bring the Truma to the Kohen on Yom Tov, so may we not bring gifts. Beis Hillel answered them, no, it is not analogous. If you say so regarding Truma, which one may not separate on Yom Tov, will you also say the same thing regarding gifts that one may separate on Yom Tov? Okay.
Mishna Zayin. Beis Shammai omrim tavlin nidochin b'madoch shel eitz. Now, just a little background over here, as we've seen before, and we spoke about this yesterday, but it's important to re-emphasize this point, is that unlike Rabbi Eliezer, who says that any melacha you need to do, that anything that's once something is mutar to do on Shabbos, you're allowed to do it on Shabbos, and like Bris Milah, he said you can do any melacha in the service of the Bris Milah, even if it could have been done before Shabbos, which is the minority view. The halacha we hold is that only melacha that must be done on the Shabbos can be done on the Shabbos, and the same goes for Yom Tov. So when it comes to preparation of food, so we have ochel nefesh, and you're allowed to do malacha in the service of ochel nefesh, but you're only allowed to do malacha that has to be done on the Yom Tov in order for the food that would make the food have its best taste. Okay, which means that you can't go and harvest on Yom Tov, right? Because there's no loss to the food if you cut it today or cut it yesterday. Okay. The same goes for things like grinding flour. Okay, if you want to grind flour, there's no particular mile in having freshly ground flour that was ground boba yom on Yom Tov. It tastes pretty much the same. However, spices are something that they release their flavor as you crush them. Right, and there's nothing, you know the difference between a freshly crushed spice and a spice that's been sitting in a bottle. Okay, so that's why Beis Shammai concede over here that you can crush spices on Yom Tov, but it must be done in a pestle of wood, okay, which is not the normal way. Normally you'd use stone. Right. Something harder than that, just because it's more effective. They want you to remember that it's still Yom Tov and you've got a heter to crush it, but do it with a shinoi so that you remember that this is not okay. And salt really should not makes no difference whether you crush it yesterday or today, but will allow you to crush it in like with a big shinoi, with a pach, which is basically earthenware, over Beitzah parur, and with a mortar that's using a wooden spoon basically, in order to. So if you come into Yom Tov and find, oh my gosh, I've got no salt now, they will reluctantly allow you to crush the salt, but only with this big shinoi like that. Beis Hillel omrim tavlin nidochin kedarkan b'madoch shel eben. Beis Hillel say no shinoi required at all for spices. This is it's Simchas Yom Tov. Do it the normal way. And they were sort of one level down. Salt, however, they say that you can still crush it, but it must be with a shinoi.
But they don't consider it to be because it's okal nefesh. Do they?
Yeah, it is. Well, it is ochel nefesh.
Nefesh, right? But that's not the reason. Is it?
The reason for what? The reason for the kula is ochel nefesh. The reason why you're allowed to do the malacha, because crushing is a malacha.
Right. Right. So okay. All right.
Okay. Mishna ches haborer kitnis b'yom tov. Now,
Ches?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry. I was
right.
To me, it was like you were saying outside the Mishnah, and now you're going to read the Mishnah. So it was on Zion. Okay.
Okay. Haborer kitnis b'yom tov. So somebody once has got some legumes on Yom Tov, and he wants to sort out, let's say, the peas from the shells or the whatever it is. There's some sort of waste material, and they want to eat it. Now, really, again, this is one of these things that could have been done before Yom Tov. Okay, you didn't do it on Yom Tov. Now you can't just sort it in a sort of the normal way. Says Beis Shammai, borer ochel v'ochel. In other words, you got to do it the way you would do borer on anything else. You've got to take out the things that you want from what you don't want and eat it immediately. So you can take the like you would do it on a Shabbos. Mm-hmm. So just like you would do on a Shabbos. So if you've got a bowl of peanuts and raisins and you don't like the raisins, you just want the peanuts. You got to pick out peanut and eat it. Pick out peanuts and eat it. You can't pick out all the peanuts or pick out all the raisins or whatever. You can't do that kind of sorting. Okay. Says Beis Hillel that this is again one of these things where, for Simchas Yom Tov, we're going to allow you to do the borer in the regular way by hand, right? With in a bowl, a canon of a tamchoi.
In a basket,
right? A basket or a bowl. Aval lo betavla v'lo benafa. You can't do it on a big table and not with a sieve or a sifter, because now this looks like you're doing large quantities. So then it looks like you're doing this as sort of much more on an industrial scale. And that far Beis Hillel doesn't permit you. This, by the way, the Gemara says that the heter of Beis Hillel to sort these things on Yom Tov, to sort out the psolet, to take away the things that you don't want, like to take away the husks and things, is only when the edible part is more than the waste, right? Because then it's easier to just remove the waste. But if the psolet is more than the ochel, then Beis Hillel agree that you have to take the ochel and leave the psolis, because otherwise it's more work. And even if the ochel is more than the psolis, but the effort of sorting out the psolis is more than the effort of taking out the ochel. For example, if it's very fine waste, then Beis Hillel agree that you still have to take the ochel away from the psolis. Okay. Rabban Gamliel Omer af mediach. In other words, it says he has an eitzah for you. Put everything in the bowl, pour water in, and all the psolis floats to the top, and you can skim it off, and you're done. It's a great eitzah, but the halacha doesn't follow Rabban Gamliel. So it turns out that would actually be prohibited. Like I had this question about it. And I asked a number of people, like, why is that such a bad thing to do? I just want to see what the if I did get any other answers for it. The first, no, I didn't actually get an answer because it sounds like the water is like somehow a specialized kli. it doesn't 100% make sense to me. Like, why, if it's easier, it's much easier to do the water job, but for some reason, both Rambam and Bartanera say that this is not the halacha. Okay. Mishna Tes, Beis Shammai omrim ein meshalchin b'yom tov ele manos. So Beis Shammai say, well, if you want to send a gift to your friend on Yom Tov, you have to send ready-made food. Again, not something that somebody else is going to have to do malacha to complete.
Right.
Hillel disagree. Beis Hillel omrim meshalchin behema chaya ba'of. You can send any kind of creature, behema chaya ba'of, ben chayin, ben shchutim, whether alive or dead. So you can send them. So you can arrive at your friend's house for Yom Tov meal and give him a live chicken. Say, here you go. I designated it before Yom Tov for eating. See how well that goes down.
Right.
Okay. Mishalchin yainos shmanim uslasos v'kitnios aval lo tevua. And you can even give him wine and oils and even flours and legumes. The flour meaning that you got to mix it, you got to knead it together to make dough and bake it, right? These are all things where you're still going to have to do malacha on Yom Tov, but not grain. Why? Because grain needs to be ground still, and you can't grind it, as I said at the beginning of this year. That we don't allow you to grind to grind the grain on Yom Tov, because that could have been done Erev Yom Tov. And there's no, like, fresh baked bread, freshly kneaded bread. Yeah, that's got a milah. That's nice, but freshly ground flour, not so much. Okay, but Rabbi Shimon matir b'tvua, but Rabbi Shimon is a minority opinion over here. He says that you can. He even permits grinding of flour on Yom Tov. Okay, because you might want to make a porridge out of it as well. Okay, that's that.
Here's a question for you. You said that Beis Hillel said that we can send domesticated animals, beast or fowl, whether alive or designated. If he designated a chicken, he said, this chicken's going to be my lunch today. Okay, yeah. And he gives it to the guy must check it. Am I correct? If he doesn't check it, who's responsible?
No, it's not. There's no barrier if he doesn't. It's just when you designate something for use on Shabbos, all that you're doing is you're moving it from the category of muktzah.
Okay, all right.
If you choose not to use it later, okay, so you chose not to use it, but it was nonetheless designated. It doesn't force you into actually doing it.
But someone might be responsible, be held responsible for it. He designated it. Okay.
No, not at all. Not at all. It's just a heter in the muktzah aspect. Like, I mean, if you see, I don't know, a rock, and you say, that's a nice rock, I want to use that as a paperweight on Shabbos.
If you don't use it, it's
okay. So you picked, like, let's say you picked it up and whatever, and you took it to the start and found, there's already a paperweight over there, I don't need to use this one, and you put it down. It's not muktzah. It's still, you haven't violated anything. It's just never muktzah.
If someone else comes and picks up that rock,
that's fine. It's not muktzah. It was designated as a paperweight.
So because the one person designated, that holds for anybody else who comes along.
Yeah.
Okay. This one.
It's no longer a muktzah machmas kupa. It's no longer. It's now a kli.
All right. Okay. I want to.
Okay.
That's straight. Okay. Dalet Aleph in Sukkah.
Yeah.
The mitzvahs at the lulav and the willow branch are performed 6 or 7 days. The recitation of Hallel and the mitzvah of rejoicing are performed 8 days. The mitzvah of sukkah and the water libation are performed 7 days, and the flute is played 5 or 6 days. How is the mitzvah of lulav performed 7 days? If the first day of the festival falls on Shabbos, the lulav is taken 7 days. But if it falls on any of the other days, it is taken 6 days. How is the mitzvah of the willow branch performed 7 days? If the 7th day of the willow ceremony falls on Shabbos, the willow ceremony is 7 days. If it falls on any of the other days, the ceremony is performed 6 days. And how is the mitzvah of lulav performed? If the first of Sukkot falls on Shabbos, they bring the lulav into the Temple Mount, and the attendants receive the lulav from them and arrange them upon the bench. But the elderly place them in a chamber, and they teach them to say, my lulav is presented as a gift to whomever it may come. On the morrow, they rise early and come, and the attendants throw the lulav before them, and they would snatch them, and striking one another. When the Bezdin saw that they were endangered, they ordained and that everyone should take the lulav.
Hold on, wait. We already got
3.
We went too far. Yeah. I sort of lost my. Excuse me. I lost my concentration, and you went on to Dalet. So Dalet is actually for tomorrow. Okay.
We started with. Didn't we start with Dalet base?
We started with Aleph.
We started with Aleph. Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. Yoma.
Okay, we're in Yoma Aleph Zion.
I'm Zion. If he wished to doze, young men of the priesthood snapped before him with the index finger, and they said to him, my Lord Kohen Gadol, stand up and cool off once before. Labyrinth. And they kept him busy until the time for slaughtering the daily offering arrived. Every day they removed ashes from the altar at the call of the crier or thereabouts, either before it or after it. And on Yom Kippur, it was done from midnight and on the 3 festivals from the first watch. And yet before the call of the crier, the courtyard was already filled with Jews. At first, whoever wanted to remove the ashes from the altar did so. In case there were many, they ran and ascended the ramp, and whoever preceded his colleague into the foot Amos won. If 2 of them were even, the administrator would say to them, put out a finger. What did they put out? 1 or 2 fingers, but they did not put out the thumb in the temple.
Okay, Shabbos Yud Tes Dalet.
One who had 2 infants, one to circumcise after Shabbos and one to circumcise on Shabbos, and he forgot and circumcised the one who was to be circumcised after Shabbos on the Shabbos, he's liable. If he had one to circumcise before Shabbos and one to circumcise on Shabbos, and he forgot and circumcised the one who was to be circumcised before Shabbos on the Shabbos, Reb Eliezer declares him liable for a sin offering, but Reb Yeshua exempts him.
Because at least, according to Rabbi Yeshua, at least it's a valid bris milah because it's on the 9th day. And that is the halacha. That is part of the halacha.
An infant may be circumcised either on the 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, or 12th day, not earlier, not later. How is this? In the normal course, he is circumcised on the 8th. If he was born at twilight, he is circumcised on the 9th. If he was born at twilight on the eve of the Shabbos, he was circumcised on the 10th. If the festival falls after the Shabbos, he was circumcised on the 11th. In the case of 2 festival days of Rosh Hashanah, he is circumcised on the 12th. A sick infant, we may not circumcise him until he recovers. Okay. One more?
Yeah.
Right. These are the shreds that invalidate the circumcision. Flesh that covers the larger part of the corona, and he may not eat of truma. If he was fleshy, he must rectify it in appearance sake. If he circumcised but did not expose the circumcision, it is as if he did not circumcise.
Okay. Next.
Brachos.
Hey, brachos tes hey.
One is obligated to bless for the evil, just as one blesses for the good, since it is said, and you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your life, and with all your might. With all your heart, with both inclinations, the good and the bad, and with all your life, even at the cost of your life, and with all your might, with all of your material possessions. Another interpretation of with all your might, whatever the treatment of God carries, meets out to you, thank him very, very much. One should avoid showing disrespect in the direction of the Eastern Gate because it's a direct line with the Holy of Holies. One may not enter the Temple Mount with his stick, nor with his shoes, nor with his wallet, nor the dust on the feet, nor may he make it a shortcut or to split. All the concluding formulas of the brachos of the temple include the saying of forever. When the heretics taught corruptly and said there is only one world, they instituted that they should say from everlasting to everlasting. They also ordained that people should greet one another with the use of the name, as it is said, and behold, Boaz came from Bethlehem and said to the reapers, the Lord be with you. And they replied, the Lord bless you. And he said, God be with you, mighty man of valor. And he says, despite not your mother when she is old, despise not your mother when she is old. And it says, it is time to act for the Lord. They have made void your Torah. Reb Nathan says they have made void your Torah because it is time to act for the Lord. We're going to pay her.
Yeah.
I didn't know. These things have no measure. The corner, the first fruits, the ayan, deeds of loving kindness and study of the Torah. These are the things of the fruits of which a man enjoys in this world, and the principle remains to him in the world to come. The honoring of one's father and mother, and deeds of loving kindness and making peace between a man and his fellow, and the study of the Torah is equal to them all. One should not give payah less than 60, and even though they said payah has no measure, everything depends on the size of the field, the number of the poor, and according to the extent of the crop.
Okay. Midos Beis Hay.
The women's courtyard was 130 amos in length and by 130 amos in width, and there were 4 chambers in its corners, each with a length of 40 amos. These chambers were not roofed, and that is how they are destined to be. For it is stated in the angel brought me out into the outer courtyard and led me past the 4 corners of the courtyard, and behold, an enclosure at one corner of the courtyard, and an enclosure at one corner of the courtyard. At the 4 corners of the courtyard, there were enclosures that were known as kataros.
Yeah.
The term kataros denotes nothing other than the fact that they were unroofed. And what were their functions? The southeastern chamber, it was a chamber of the Nazirim. For there, the Nazirim would cook their shlamim offerings and shave their hair and cast the shorn hair beneath the cauldron. The northeastern chamber, it was the chamber of the wood, for there were Kohanim who were physically blemished, would sort out the wormy pieces of wood, and any piece of wood in which a worm was found was disqualified from being used upon the altar. The northwestern chamber, it was the chamber of the Mitzvah. Regarding the southwestern chamber, Reb Eliezer and Yaakov said, I forgot what function it served. Abba Shaul said they used to place wine and oil there, and it was called the chamber housing the oils. It was originally smooth, and they surrounded it with a balcony, so the women should watch from above and the men from below, so that they should not be intermingled. And 15 steps ascended from within the women's courtyard to the Israelite courtyard, according to the 15 songs of ascents that are found in Psalms. For upon these steps, the Levium would utter song, and these 15 steps were not straight, rather they were rounded like half a circular threshing floor. And there were 3 chambers beneath the Israelites' courtyard, which were open in the women's courtyard. There were the Levium would place harps, lyres, cymbals, and all other musical instruments. The Israelites' courtyard was 135 amos in length by 11 amos in width. And similarly, the Kohan's courtyard was 130 amos in its length and by 7 amos in width. And the ends of beams separated between the Israelite courtyard and the Kohanim courtyards. But Eliezer ben Yaakov says there was a step there and one amma high, and the platform rested upon it. And in the platform were 3 steps, each with a height of half an amma. It is found that the Kohan's courtyard is higher than the Israelites' courtyard by 2.5 amos. I'm going to stop for 1 second. Someone's at the door, okay? Platform had 3 steps, each with a height of half an amma, and it's found that the Kohanim's courtyard is higher than the Israelites' courtyard by 2.5 amos. The entire courtyard was 187 amos in length by 130 amos in width, and there were 13 prostrations there. Abba Yosef ben Kanan says, corresponding to the 13 gateways of the courtyard. The southern gateways adjacent to the west, the upper gate, the kindling cave, the gate of the firstborns, and the water cave. Why was it named the water gate? Because through it, they would bring the flask of water for the libation during Sukkot. Eliezer ben Yaakov says, and there, because there were the stream of water as wide as the Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov said, and because there the stream of water is as wide as which issues from a flask, and the future will emerge from under the threshold of the temple. And opposite, like the southern gateways in the north, adjacent to the west, the gate of Yokaniah, the gate of the offering, the women's gate, the gate of the song. And why was it called the gate of Yokaniah? Because through it, Yokaniah exited the courtyard when he was exiled. In the east was the Nicanor gate, and the Nicanor gate had two minor doorways, one to the right and one to the left. And there were two gateways in the west that did not have any name. Okay.
Another one. They're long Mishnahs today in Midos.
The altar was 32 amos by 32 amos. It ascended 1 amma and went in with 1 amma. This tier was the base. It is found to be 30 by 30 amos. It descended 5 amos and went in with 1 amma. This tier was the ledge. It is found to be 28 by 28 amos. And the space for the horns measured an amma on the side and an amma on this side. It is found to be 26 by 26 amos. And the space where the feet of the Kahana walked measured an amma on this side and an amma on that side. It is found to be 24 by 24 amos, and this is the space for the pyre. Reb Yossi said originally the altar was only 28 by 28 amos. And it narrowed and ascended in the same manner until it is found that the space for the pyre measured only 20 by 20 amos. Okay. But when the exiles ascended, they added to the altar 4 amos on the south and 4 on the west in the shape of a gamma. It is stated that the hearth area is 12 by 12 amma by 12 amma wide. I'm sorry, that's wrong. And the hearth area is 12 amos long by 12 wide square. It may be thought that the space for the pyre was only 12 by 12, but when the verse states that it's for its 4 quadrants, it teaches that it is from the center point of the altar, and the verse is measuring 12 amos in each direction. And a line of red encircled the altar at the halfway point to the height, to separate between the upper bloods and the lower bloods. And the base traversed the entire north side and the entire west side of the altar, and consumes 1 amma in the south and 1 amma in the east.
And Matia.
Okay. Gimel.
Sein Dalet, ne?
Zayin Aleph?
Sein Dalet.
Dalet. If he was working with the figs, he may not partake with the grapes. With the grapes, he may not partake of the figs, but he may abstain until he reaches the place of the best fruits and eat. Concerning all of these rabbis, and said they would eat only at the time of work, but in order to avoid a loss to the owner, they said, the laborers may eat while walking from one row to row, and when they return from the winepress. Concerning a donkey, it may eat when it is being unloaded. A laborer may eat a cucumber even if it is worth a dinner, or a date even if it's worth a dinner. Reb Eliezer ben Kizma said, a laborer may not eat in excess of the wages. The sages permit it, but maintain that we should teach a person not to be gluttonous unless he shut the door to his face.
In other words, if a laborer gets a reputation as somebody who eats everything that he's working with, then nobody's going to want to employ him.
Right. A person may stipulate for himself, for his son and his daughter who are of age, for his male slave and female slave who are of age, and for his wife, because they have understanding. But he may not stipulate for a son and daughter who are minors, not for the male slave and female slave who are minors, not for his animals, since they have no understanding.
Okay, that's it.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you very much. Have a great day. Enjoy.
Thank
Feel
you very
well.
much to you. I again appreciate